Welcome back. Coming up on 6/12 on your Saturday. Hope you had a great Friday night. No, it was definitely a wet one and a lot of rain. I saw some flash flooding in some parts of Indiana.
I was at a wedding. It was supposed to be an outdoor wedding at 4 p.m. Had to move everything inside, just kind of always have a backup plan. I mean, as we know this time of year, we had some very intense rainfall and it did lead to some quick localized flooding, but that did recede just because it's been so hot. Didn't last long, but today is another day where we're going to have to stay weather aware because we've got another boundary. Instead of those more scattered pop-up type thunderstorms like what we saw yesterday, this is going to come through as a line of storms, and it's going to be along a cold front as it pushes across the state. Looks like this is going to primarily be a late evening event for most of us here in central Indiana. You can see this boundary did have some scattered storm development along that. It's going to slowly start to push off to the south and then eventually to the west as it crosses the state of Indiana. So we've kind of quieted everything down so far during the overnight as we've been watching some cloud cover, and even on my way in saw some lightning strikes off into the distance, but we're getting a break from that. A little bit of a lull in the rain activity for now. It is still very warm and humid as we get our Saturday started. A dew point at 73. And over the next several hours, I think we're going to be pretty dry. In fact, as we warm back to the 70s, 80s, and then eventually into the low 90s, we will eventually see some increased cloud cover. But here we go for that severe risk for tonight. We are watching this time frame approximately 5 o'clock in the evening through the very early morning hours on Sunday, and it's going to move from north to south. So by the time we get into about 1 a.m. early Sunday, this is primarily going to be impacting the far southern tier of central Indiana. The primary threat along this line is going to be pretty widespread damaging wind gusts. The potential of that, at least, with 60+ mile per hour wind gusts possible. Also, we could get to some brief heavier downpours that could again lead to some localized flooding. So I want you to be aware of this, especially any outdoor plans you might have this evening. Make sure that you have a plan B and have a way to monitor radar and receive those alerts. Here is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Basically, the entire state of Indiana outside of the far southern tier is going to be in that level 2 zone. From north to south today, noticing as that boundary moves, it will continue to weaken. That's why Vincennes over to the Louisville area downgraded to a level 1. So let's walk you through the timeline as this front is expected to arrive. Again, mostly dry as we go through most of our Saturday. This is going to take us to about 5 o'clock. So enjoy your afternoon. Temperatures going to heat back up to near 90 into the low 90s across central Indiana. Still a hot and humid day setting up for us. Then after 5 o'clock, watch as this front starts to drop south. Initially, between about 5 and 7 p.m., we are talking the first zones to be impacted: Lafayette, Kokomo to Muncie. And at that point, I do think the most intense part of this line will be ongoing as this will continue to weaken. As we go later in the evening, the sun angle starts to drop. We start to lose daytime heating. Should potentially weaken a bit here as we go through 9 p.m. and the sun goes down. That will be as this line approaches central Indiana from Richmond to Indianapolis over to Crawfordsville, Greencastle. This is around 9 o'clock in the evening, and then that line will continue to drop south into places like Bloomington, Martinsville, over to Shelbyville, Columbus, and Greensburg by 11 o'clock. So now we're on the other side of the sun going down, and then after 11 p.m., as we get into that 1 o'clock hour early Sunday, this line will really start to weaken as it moves into places like Bedford, Seymour, and then eventually during the overnight completely shifting off to the south. And as we get into our Sunday morning, we will be rain-free at that point. In fact, tomorrow looks to be a very decent day. Tomorrow, by far a better day than today. Still going to be a relatively warm day, not as hot as it has been. We'll see a brief cool in this as our temperature approaches the mid-80s tomorrow, but we do bring back more sunshine. On the backside of that system, the wind will briefly shift here out of the north and to the east. So we'll have to see the impacts of any remnant of that wildfire smoke, if that could potentially get pushed back in from the north. So just keep in mind that could start to tick back up as far as our air quality issues that we'll be dealing with for the second half of the weekend. And then we're looking at yet again this one potentially even a stronger front as we get into our Tuesday. That will be the front that drops that temperature out of the near 90-degree range back briefly into the 80s, and a couple overnight low temperatures we could even see in the upper 50s. So some big time changes when it comes to our weather this week after a couple cold fronts, one tonight and then another one set to move in as we get into our Tuesday.